Hello, and welcome to another episode of Good versus Good podcast, where common ground begets common good. Tonight we have a recurring guest in Alex. Alex, how have you been?
Hey buddy, I'm doing great today. How are you?
Just getting over some exhaustion, but starting to feel better. So today I want to go over something. So the first thing that I had you read was one of three documents. The first one that you read was the simulation of progress. And based on what you recall, how did you find that article?
I thought it was challenging. I felt like it's supposed to challenge you. It's supposed to make you think. I did question a lot of myself in what I read, um, and to me, it was a very interesting subject.
Okay, good. Well, we'll see what you think of this one.
Hmm.
Today we're gonna talk about the simulation of doubt, and the simulation of doubt goes into the mythological origin of Satan. So, not sure how you feel about that, but we'll find out soon enough.
Interesting.
Before I launch into it, I should, for those of you who are this is their first time listening to the podcast, we have somewhat of a different format, and I'm going to explain it to you right now. So, hello and welcome to the Good versus Good podcast, where common ground begets common good. The focus of the podcast is to invite guests that have different beliefs to read one of my articles observing politics or religion. All the while, we actively adjust our comfort level being exposed to each other's ignorance. Remember, my ignorance censors his truth. His ignorance censors my truth. Because this is not a debate, my guest must decide in real time what is more important, being right or being civil. The guest has the final say. I may only speak when the guest asks me for assistance. At the end of the podcast, the guest will rate my article. Well, in this case, there's no article rating, but you get my drift.
Hmm.
I'm just happy someone's reading the work. So, what's more important to you, being right or being civil? Let's find out. Okay, Alex, I'm driving here, so
Sure
uh,
thing, buddy.
we'll have to coordinate through this. So let's go. So tell me, do you need me to expand
No,
the
everything's perfect. I see the simulation of doubt, and I see the warning.
okay? How about now? Do you need me to blow up the font?
A little bit would make sense. Yeah, just a little more. Just one more. Perfect.
Okay. So just like the format, just read it out loud, react in real time. If you have questions, ask me. You want me to expand on it? I will.
Sure. So hell is in the head. You have to step outside of yourself and look at your behavior objectively. How do you do that? You must accept God made you perfect in His eyes, not yours. Document your journey with severe honesty until you construct a version of certainty. Put it on a paper and step back from it. Fill the gaps. Walk away. When enough time passes, you'll relate to it less because the page remembers your bullshit better than you can. Let the paper suffer instead. Interesting. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is you. So, am I looking myself as a black and white or as a color icon?
It's the same thing.
Same thing. Okay, this is you. This is you inside a simulation. Can you blow that up a little bit just because it's so much smaller font?
You know what? It's not really
Okay, all right. It's not
it's
really
just there.
important.
It's just sort of kind of just like a to highlight what
Uh-huh.
it's not meant to be read. Yeah.
Gotcha. This is you inside a simulation of doubt. Look below. That's you. You are looking at the first attempt at documenting reality 3 years ago. Very simple. Reality is so obvious it's imperceptible because doubt renders you incapable of perceiving God. Why? Faith is fallible. Why? God cannot starve. How can you humanize something that cannot starve? Satan starves. You humanize God when you have the will to starve. You humanize God when you have the will to starve. Okay? Satan's greatest sin is he humanizes God. That is the simulation of God.
Doubt.
So how does Satan doubt? Sorry, how does Satan humanize God?
Well, here we go. Sorry, the daughter just.
No worries. Yeah,
Clicked
you're
out.
looking at simulation as a day-to-day activities based on what I'm reading, right? You're trying to kind of see what are some of the overarching activities and where does the whole notion of God and Satan come into
So,
play.
remember, so God is always touted as being perfect. He's omnipotent. He's everything. But God created Satan, right? And Satan does everything to spite God. In through what I would call honesty, to show that uh, by being honest, he highlights to us, the flock, that he's not perfect. Because how can you, God, God can never starve. So in one way, he's saying, how can you relate to something that never starves? You starve every day. Because you relate to me more than you relate to God, and look at the result of it. I highlight the hypocrisy of his rule, and people find that scary. Some people find that attractive, because yeah, that makes sense. What does that do? In the, I mean, in the end of it all, we can only guess, but I know from experience that what it means to starve physically and to starve um, emotionally, that it's a place where you have a heightened sense of creativity, heightened sense of awareness, where you can question things, doubts you have, things you even certain things you're certain about. It's because you realize that you know death is a lot closer than it was when you weren't when you were not starving. It puts you in a frame of mind where it's like you have to think more clearly, because uh, death is more prominent, and I think that's what Satan likes to do. He puts you in a mindset where he makes you question the certainties in your life in a way
But I
that.
feel like it's a good thing, John. I feel like we should question everything. You know, we wouldn't have gotten so far in a scientific field and anywhere in evolution if we didn't question ourselves.
And that could explain why he exists. That could explain exactly why. If you
But
want to,
that tells me that devil is not bad. Devil question us to progress us, right? I feel like that's what you're trying to tell me. I mean, nobody's perfect, right? That means that both God and devil have something that they are not perfect at, right?
well, I agree that Satan is definitely responsible for our progress. That's for sure. It's he's a necessary
Evil, like beliefs.
evil.
Yeah.
It's a necessary evil, exactly. So I'm not necessarily trying to. If you keep going, you see that I'm not trying to that I go so far as to say that he is a necessary evil, and that I almost sympathize with him.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to wrap your head around something that is just pure evil, right, in somebody's eyes, um, or pure good. I don't know if there's such thing as pure good. Like I've never encountered anything in my life that was pure. Let's put it that way. And I feel like the sooner you call yourself out and doubt yourself and question yourself, that's when the improvements, internal improvements, start coming in. This is when when you feel uncomfortable and you feel like you're questioning everything. This is when you're growing as an individual, at least for me. If I'm doing every day the same thing I've been doing all my life, it's a very straightforward task that I'm aware of. Um, I think I mentioned it before. I feel like, within us, we're gods and devils. So I feel like this is internal struggle within personalities, right? People deal with everything in their lives they struggle with, right? And they question, they have two sides in everything. So I feel like it's definitely represents a human mind in my eyes, what you just kind of displayed.
Well, you'll see. You'll interested based on that comment. I'm interested to see now
Hmm.
how that will, if it will stay the same or change based on what you read further.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
Oh, yeah, I forgot him.
So, according to Wikipedia, in Greek mythology, Sisyphus was the king of Ephyra. He was punished for his self-aggrandizing craftiness and deceitfulness by being forced to roll an immense boulder uphill, only for it to roll down every time it neared the top, repeating this action for eternity. Okay. So the simulation of doubt, God, earth, emptiness. So Satan is the guy who's rolling the ball,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So the muse is the foundation that he is based off. Am I correct to assume that?
Well, the muse. So it's two part. The hill that Satan has to roll the globe, where it's Eden.
Mm-hmm.
It's his nose, right?
Yep.
And but the nose is also you'll see in the next drawing that it's actually the muse, and it explains the muse's role in all this. So yeah, it's the he's on the back of the muse, rolling the
Mm-hmm.
Eden up the back of the muse, right in front of God's eyes, and in the connection between the brain and Satan is the simulation of doubt. Is that this what we're experiencing now is in his head? We are in his simulation.
The Satan simulation.
Yes.
So you're saying that because Satan has this tedious tasks of doing the same thing every single day, he finds this as a norm. He looks at us as somebody who have the same actions, who have the same kind of lifestyle.
We're you know how I just talked that over in a simulation, like kind of like the
Yes.
Matrix. We
Yes.
we are, and it's in his head.
Okay.
So it talks further how that plays out below, but I'm just trying to illustrate how I've done my best to explain all this, given my
Hmm.
research and my background and my experiences.
Hmm.
So, if you want, I'll scroll down to the next one.
Sure. Sure. Can you win versus block God's? Sorry, I can't read this, dude.
I can read it.
Sure.
Okay, so the wings block God's view of his creation, tore one off so he can see. So notice that he's crying.
Sorry?
Notice how God is crying.
Yeah.
So what's the quote? The consequence of creation is heartache. And I mentioned this to Chris on I can't remember which podcast. God cannot be bored. That's why he created the universe. But as a result, in order for his universe to be perfect, he has to forgive us. Every time we ask, he has to forgive us for everything. That's the only way that he remains infallible. That's the only way we can say that the universe is perfect. Because he knew that by creating the universe, what that meant. Because from our point of view, it's not perfect, right? No one would ever dare say that the universe is perfect, the world is perfect. But to God, it is. So what he did was that. See how the muse. You can see more clearly now how the muse is the God's nose. Well,
yeah.
He used to be an angel, but had two wings, and the purpose of the wings was to block God's view, so he could not see. He could be ignorant to what he created, and all the while he can hear Satan straining the roll and the profanities that would come from him rolling the boulder up his nose. And then eventually he got so sick of it that he tore one of the wings off. So now he can see what he's done. And he realizes that whoever asks for forgiveness, I must forgive. Because I was selfish enough to create the universe. This is the consequence of creation. So for me, from a mythology standpoint, I know now why the muse only has one wing.
So, but what about notion of hell? If he forgives everybody, what is the point of hell?
Good question.
See, I don't know. Do you think this is the view that he had throughout our existence of humanity? What I'm saying is, did he have this view during, let's say, Noah's the flood, the Great Flood, right? Or am I being too literal?
No, I remember now. So I thought about that, and maybe I could do. If you if you're patient with me, I'll do my best to try and recall my best guess as to what happens to help, thread the needle between this concept and the one I'm going to tell you now.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to believe, for this to work, you have to acknowledge or believe that everything is scripted, right? Your daughter was born at the beginning of time. Everything was planned out once that Big Bang went, right? There's no such thing as random. There's no such thing as spontaneous. There's no such thing as there's never nothing not scripted. Everything is scripted to a maniacal degree. The flakes of sand that spill past your feet, the clouds, the stars. When you get an itch on your nose, if he's everything, he literally has to be everything from the beginning of time to the end of time. That's a God I could believe in, because it's like, holy shit, he's literally everything. Literally. Everything. This has all been scripted. So I'm like, okay, so if that's scripted, then what the hell happens when we die? Right? If he's responsible for everything, we're not made responsible for our actions. You know, I can murder someone, but God scripted that for me. So how does that work? Good question. I believe that when you die, you achieve full spiritual autonomy, where you are no longer scripted by God. You are completely free to the point you don't even recognize yourself. You don't even recognize your past self. It's like a complete stranger. So when it comes time, it's okay. You have to review your life. And you have to watch this person, and you have to explain in all the ways this person made mistakes and made positive, negative consequences. And this person is going to determine whether you go to heaven or hell. And as you're like, who the fuck is this guy? I've never seen this guy before in my life. Because you're so detached, because you have your full spiritual autonomy, you don't even realize that's you. So you have to forgive and forget. At every point he asks for forgiveness, you have to forgive. And you, however long, if I have 79 years, you have to watch him for 79 years. And if you do your part right, then you go to heaven, because then you will have full spiritual autonomy. But you also have the insight and the, being in the position you are, almost looking like in a fish tank. You see everything. They don't see you at all. It's like you have to relive your life, but that person you're looking at doesn't belong to you in any way, shape, or form. That's how detached you are. So things he might do are going to be really putrid. And you're going to say, how the fuck is this guy? I'm tied to this guy, and he's going to determine whether I burn in hell or go to heaven. And that's based on what I can remember. It's hard. I wrote it all down, so I can't. But that's my best guess. That's my best guess.
My question to you: if I am free from control, all sorts of control, why do I care about judging somebody? I can go anywhere in the fucking universe. I can go fly as a ball of energy to the cosmic ends to this galaxy. Why do I give a shit about some puny human soul to judge?
Well, in order for this concept to work, it's you're tied to each other, because your judgment is based on how you can forgive and forget all your past dealings. But you look at this yourself as a complete stranger, and he's fucking up left, right, and center, and you're thinking to yourself, I have no choice but to forgive and forget, and to acknowledge when he or she does something correct. You're not completely free.
So it's still scripted then. It's still scripted.
It's scripted in the sense that you're reliving someone's life, but your actions are autonomous. And maybe that's the hard part, because think about this.
What is a perception of good versus evil, right? We know this based on laws, based on religion, right?
Yeah.
Now, religion truthfully existed maximum a little bit over 2,000 years. So the perception of good or bad, it was a lot different, I would say, right? And notion of God was a lot. There were pagan gods. I mean, there were so many fucking futuristic gods with all kinds of superpowers, right? My point is, how could somebody know what is good versus bad? The notion of what is good was bad was a lot different 8,000 years ago. The language was a lot. There was probably no language in some cases, right?
I think you're proving my point.
So how could somebody with limited information in their head determine what is good versus bad? What is love versus hate?
So someone with autonomy would have a tremendous difficulties, is what maybe I'm getting from you, to understand what is good from evil. right? If I'm the one determining here what is good from evil, so I have to determine this person's me, but I don't see it that way. But I have to determine what's good and evil. And then and it's like a whole gamemanship. Like, well, I want him to go to heaven because he's going to determine if I go to heaven. Or if he's led a bad life and I say, no, he goes to hell, do I move on because I was honest and I understood what it meant to be good versus bad? So it's like a gamesmanship. It's like it fucks with you because you're autonomous, right? I don't know what autonomy. No one knows what autonomy means. No one has a clue. It's a word, but I don't pretend to know what it means, and that's just my stab in the dark.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going here.
The old man is God. The dark figure is Satan. The boulder is Eden. I don't claim to be accurate. I claim to be interesting. The simulation we are trapped in is in Satan's head. Hell is in the head. Biblically, God forgives you to relieve his pain. Why is God in pain? The consequences of creation is heartbreak. God made Satan by design to reject him. Why? Boredom. God cannot be bored. Idle hands. God creates everything both sinister and divine. The consequence of creation is heartbreak. Are you saying that everything has a beginning, has an end? Is that what you're saying by that?
The consequence of creation. So when you have a child, the consequence of creation. So when I created my children, heartbreak is a given, because for reasons that I'll tell you up until this point, it's been because they're struggling, and I can't help, no matter how hard I try. You know, it's they have bad experiences with people in the neighborhood, and can't help, no matter how hard I try. You know, they could, you know, my daughter has a peanut allergy, a nut allergy, so she can't enjoy some of the activities that all the other children get to enjoy, and that's a consequence of Cynthia and I creating her. So on a level of God, like you said, he didn't want to, it was either be bored for eternity or heartbreak. And this is, I know, what was it? I can't remember who I was talking to. This is why God will always forgive as many times as you ask, because it relieves his pain. That's the only way I can explain why that's the case. It's just trying to be poetic about it, you know? So that's what I mean by that.
Interesting. God creates everything from both sinister and divine. So why does God need devil in the first place? You know what I mean? I feel they're saying it's just God. Satan is just an extension of his personality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just another branch.
Yeah. Yeah. He was an angel, right?
I honestly feel like, my perception of who we are, we're both good and evil. Just like what you're saying here. Every decision we make is based on what we grew up with, the principles that kind of are tangled within our personality. And, as you get older, you become worse. You don't become better. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like as you get older, how can you become clearer spiritually if you're getting dirtier emotionally?
Well, you're becoming more aware. That's what happens.
Yeah, you can become more bitter and angrier a lot of the times, right?
Yeah, that has to be. People don't necessarily know how to address that. it happens. I can only imagine. I'm only 42, but I've dealt with it.
Hmm.
It's like people holding on to delusions for too long, and
Yeah.
then you realize long before it's too late to may alter course. It's like they become jaded and bitter because they held on too long to something that was impossible,
Yeah.
and maybe no one told them for fear of what they might say, or maybe people told him, like, stop, it's not going to go anywhere. And he always resented the people that would tell them that they'll never achieve it. And then you come to learn that they were right, and it's too late to change. So you're
Yeah.
bitter. So a lot of it's just you gotta learn to let go. You gotta learn to accept that you're not perfect, and it's
It's difficult. It's very difficult to receive criticism. You know,
yeah,
especially when you get attached and you get emotional about your work. I
yeah,
get, that's why now, I'll be honest with you, John, I don't get attached to my work personally.
mm.
Um, I feel like you become a true professional when,
Sorry, Chris. My daughter just we have a little walkie-talkie system.
no problem, buddy. Everything okay?
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah. What I was saying is, for me, it was very difficult to process feedback because of how much attachment I had to my work, right? Right now, I work for a big company. I get constant feedbacks all the time, right? And a lot of it's negative, right? Progress is overall very much negative. And the more you get attached, around your work, the harder it will be for you to change. So you got to change that perspective for what you're doing altogether right away. It was difficult for me, man, because I get emotional about my work. I really feel like this is my passion, and passion equals love, right? And love sometimes equals anger, right? And you get frustrated, so you gotta detach yourself from it, and that's I feel like is the key. Hearing people out who have more experience, more perspective, and just be accepting to those changes, right?
Yeah, I'm sure this. I'm sure there's a lot of things that applies to. Like if you one of the. I mean, if worst comes to worst, you don't like your job, or you don't like the people you work with, you can find another job, and hopefully that works out
Yeah,
better for you. You know, I think
yeah,
I think we're in this case. You have a child. It's like that's yours. You know, is your child, and it's like that's that's the ride you signed up for, and I think I wouldn't want to adopt. Like I wouldn't want to detach from my child as a to compensate for my inability to accept criticism from others, or for my daughter to hear and accept, or my son accept criticism from others. Um, I don't know if that's how it works. I just know that would it creates heartbreak because it's you know no one's gonna see your child the way you do. So
yeah,
it's hard. But you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point. Do you want to keep going?
yeah. Of course. Do you want to? Oh, okay, okay.
Do you know who that is?
Um, no.
Satan.
Why? Why Satan?
Why Satan?
Yeah. Why
Oh,
is it Satan?
well, that's I wanted people to know that he's not a caricature.
Hmm.
The way he's depicted normally, it's not a caricature. Um, he's He's quite. I wanted to depict him as someone who's handsome, someone who's almost androgynous, so you can't tell what he's. I imagine him to be both male and female. I have it in my head. I don't know if I have the capability to draw it, but almost like
Yeah.
a hodgepodge of national. You couldn't pinpoint anyone, and took me. I can't remember what I was thinking when I drew this, but this is how I see him. You know, this is how I see him.
I feel like you're trying to tell me that Satan can be in all of us, despite our religion, race, background, whatever it is we come from. It can be around us, right?
And it doesn't necessarily have to be deviant or deceptive. It could be the opposite, right? Because I've seen Satan in things that are quite beautiful. Because he can hide in things that are. He can hide behind a smile, for example. I see Satan a lot in people's smiles. They have people have very sinister smiles. Where it's like, no, I know what that is. That's, for me, it's been consistent when certain people's they have certain smiles. That's where it comes from. It's a very sinister part of the mind. So I just wanted to make that clear. That
it's interesting, yeah. Whips as Satan is doomed to push the rock uphill. Just like the muse inspires us to achieve the impossible despite the likelihood of failure. Eden depicts in the illustration above is heaven. We do live in Eden. We live in the reflection of Eden, stewing inside the mind of fallen angel. A fallen angel that resents himself so much that invests in Eden.
Inverts.
So much he inverts Eden. And the soul that dwells there, within his own head, despite his father, that is where we live. Interesting. Okay, so a fallen angel that resents himself so much, he inverts Eden. And the souls that dwell there within his own head to spite his father. That is where we live. Interesting.
So this is a cutout of Satan's head.
All right.
And this is the mythology on like a 30,000 foot view. So right here, this is hell. Here are the flames. And then you have the three, I forget what you call them. I think did they call them simulations? I can't remember. So you have God. This is what people, this is what the population chooses to believe in. God, earth, emptiness. Okay, so it's like almost like flat. It's like three versions of earth that these people, because we all start off in hell. We're hell spawn. Remember the pictures that I had you draw? Think of that. What happens is, they create an inverted tower of Babel. Remember that you did that drawing for me?
Yep.
Extends to hell, and then they climb up to the top. And then from here, we didn't get to draw this part, but you create a following, right? You become a false prophet, right? You're a celebrity, you're a politician, you're a millionaire. You amass a following to the point where you create like a giant tower made out of your followers. They kind of like a circus act. And the point is you have to try and get as high as possible so that when you grapple, remember this one? You remember that with the two muse? They were connected and they were flying towards there. So this one was where the female muse, and this is the male muse. They connected, and they're flying up to a muse's heaven is called Bedlam, and it's here where it's this muse here is called the what's it called? It's the Cinderella Queen. Cinderella Queen. I have a poem on that in my poetry section.
Mm-hmm.
And they determine, okay, you two, you want to move on? You have to get married. And then you lose your wings, you go back down to earth, wherever you came from, and you start your life. You're not muse anymore. You're human. You can raise a family, do what you want. And if they refuse, they become pickled in jars, and they become pickled in their own tears in order to preserve themselves physically. And it's a play off of Instagram and TikTok. And notice how they exist in these little squares, and they're dancing or they're posing. That's what that is. It's the muse that have been excommunicated, and they're just there to collect attention from other people. That's for eternity, because they didn't want to connect them to it. They prefer the attention over a life partner, and that's how the cycle. That's how the cycle works. So this is behind this. So we're these little specks here. You get people that worship the earth, right? With climate change, we got electric cars, this and that. And you get people who believe in God, right? And then you get the people who will believe in anarchy and death and destruction, whatever. These things kind of overlap, and they're more and more.
There are people who just left alone.
I don't think so. I don't think there's a really. I mean, you could probably stay here, but I don't think you'd want to, because I just don't.
Like, what if you want to move somewhere up north, away from people, away from progress, just be yourself, right?
In the mythology, when you die, you go back to hell. The only way to move on is you have to reach heaven, essentially.
But so you mentioned earlier that God evidently forgives everybody.
Yeah.
So why this? Why do we need this?
Well, this is the thing. This here, we're in a simulation. Okay? This is our universe right in here. Okay?
Right.
He's perverting the image here inside his head. And notice this. This is God.
Yeah.
But not God, his version of God.
It's the God in his image.
God in his image. And you know what the God of his image is? Doubt. The simulation of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Remember I said you damn yourself with doubt?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all. I think poetically, I think it works. So.
Okay.
Mind you, I've never actually taken the time to try and put everything together and tried to see how they thread together. Maybe I would guess maybe 60% of it, 65% of it would just slot in, but maybe 25-30% was like, oh, I got to think about this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be interesting.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. No, for sure, man. You gotta push the boundaries, dude. That's what it's all about, right? Reality is the simulation is doubt. Doubt in what? That God exists? We are just an idea inside Satan's mind. Hell is in the head. The mind can generate dreams so lucid it is indistinguishable from cognizance. The mythology of Muse is the pinnacle of poetry. I documented and survived. I hope this helps God's heartache. I hope this brings you closure. Now step back from yourself and see the simulation of for yourself. Look below. So can you tell me a little bit about
Oh man, it's been a while, but so basically, here's you.
uh-huh.
Um, it basically breaks down into 3 steps, right? The path that's scripted, just as concisely as I can put it. So you start off. Unfortunately, I can't read this.
No worries.
But it's very, like, I feel I got to the point where, even though I haven't read this in a while, that I could reread it and I get within ballpark, maybe 75% within what I recall, because it's very, you do your best to try and capture your thoughts, but they're always based on thoughts that you don't, you're not, it doesn't occur to you should record as well. So, and it's just like, fuck, I don't quite get this. But basically, I could read you this one. We surrender to the temptation of worth held ransom by those who prey on our vulnerabilities.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, buddy. Sorry, can you speak up?
Yeah. I'm gonna just read one of the things a quote from the chart here. We surrender to the temptation of worth held ransom by those who prey on our. There's not much more I can read on this, but basically, I tried to create this is like my diploma.
Yeah.
This is like a diploma. It's like, hey, this is what I know. I didn't go to university, but this is what I know. Okay? So, it's pretty wide. I wanted to get it framed, but it cost like a few $100. I'm like, fuck. Maybe not anytime soon, but I will eventually do that. So, that's all. This is kind of just showing, this is my education, essentially. If you can follow this along, then you kind of understand. This is just the simulation of doubt, right? You still have the simulation of progress. You still have the simulation of coincidence. You have all this other shit. So it's just to show you that, hey, I put a lot of thought into this. If you get that just at a glance, then it's like that serves its purpose.
It's amazing. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on here because I can't read it. But this looks like I would love to revisit this.
Well, I tried uploading it. Here's the file. So try if it works. The file, I wanted to put it like the full quality file, but for some reason the site won't. It's too big. The image is too big.
Yeah.
So maybe I could try again. I just haven't gone around to it.
Makes sense. Why is Satan a black child? God is his Satan. All Satan sees is God's skin. All Satan sees is God's skin. This is why racism exists. Resent conquest. It's only conquest if you don't surrender. We're perfect in God's eyes, who watches you refusing to surrender. Satan's hate, like racism, is as shallow as the compulsion to be shocked. If that is responsible for triggering resentment, there is no escaping how shallow our shame enjoys victimhood. Slavery, white guilt. Get over it. Surrender to conquest. If only Satan, concerned to gods by design, conceded to God's by design, we would all enjoy Eden for eternity. Perhaps it's not up to Satan, it's up to us, stewing inside Satan's head, to reject the God of doubt. Together, united, we are the sum of Jesus' parts. This is why we need the doomsday scenario, to force the world to surrender to God's together. You see the madness of divinity. It's perpetual divide. It's brilliant. Only the Son of God can unite us. Are you the Son of God? Liar. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, listen, throughout history, I feel like 95% of all fucking so this uniting of gods. I get the idea, but we tried to do it historically for thousands of years. It did not fucking work. It brought more division, more hate, more wars, and just death than anything out there. You know what I mean? My idea is if we just get rid of all religion, we would have no fucking hate. Every hateful scenario or comment that I've gotten was because it's rooted from religion of some sorts. I had people who wouldn't touch me because I ate meat. I had people who wouldn't talk to me or look at me because of my background. I had people stare at me because my wife and I are both different backgrounds, thus different religions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in my eyes, we would get over it if we, but the thing is at the same time, getting over it, we should, but we should never forget, right? Because we learn from our mistakes, we learn from history itself. And if we forget, history will tend to repeat itself. And this is overall a very interesting subject.
I think you triggered something in me that might help me explain this further. Let me just give me a second here. Okay. It's only conquest if you don't surrender. Dent conquest. We are perfect in God's eyes, who watches you refusing to surrender. Satan's hate, like criticism, is as shallow as the compulsion to be shocked. So therefore, that in itself is what you're experiencing. The compulsion to be shocked is very shallow. So it's very, very, very. People have a hair trigger when it comes to shock, because it's a compulsion, and it's generally something inappropriate or bad to them, at least. And there's no escaping how shallow our shame enjoys victimhood, and that's the big people. I wrote, I can't remember, maybe it was in the other one, but victimhood is, I think, the greatest threat to the nation, to the globe. Victimhood. Maybe it's just a Western. Maybe it's just a Western cultural thing, but I think the victimhood is.
And we live in a very trigger society as well.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have this victim mentality where everything can hurt us. People should pay for hurting us, right? I feel like because we live in our own bubbles, we live in our own world where we think what is a norm to us, we don't realize that's not a norm to you or to somebody. So that's when you hear their perspective, that's when the shock comes in, right? I feel like because we all live in our own societies today with the smartphones and just being in our own little world, we get used to our perspectives. They become part of our lives. And because we get so deeply involved in all those mentalities, this is why hearing other people's perspective tends to be so shocking to us. It's coming back to the whole notion of caring a lot about what you have to say or do, right? Being attached to your words. It's coming back to this little subject matter that you talked about previously. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well then, I just remembered. Okay, can I get you?
It's okay. What do you want me to read? It's easier to reject flaws than it is to accept them, because flaws advertise at a glance the insecurity destined to sabotage our lives. Rejecting flaws instantly relieves us from our responsibility to overcome the plague of pity that encourages victimhood to thrive. People love being the victim because it puts them in the spotlights. Well, I like that, yeah. Rejecting flaws instantly reveals us from our responsibility of pity. Yeah, I don't know if I'm looking for plague of pity. Uh, yeah, mm, I guess maybe sometimes I do. You want people to accept the work that you provide for what it is, and a lot of times it simply does not match up to what it should be. And yeah, you get emotional for sure.
Yeah, it's I I don't speak in generalities. I go.
And we
I
love
just
being right, dude. We love being right.
yeah yeah.
Can I tell you a quick story that happened to me? I don't know if I told you. I was driving down the street, just around being right, right. I was driving down my street and I got to a stop sign, and the gentleman on my right, actually on the parallel line, didn't stop, and he was going across, and I was making a left. So I honked at him because he didn't stop for a certain time, right? So he tells me, well, there's two lanes, so I don't get affected if he doesn't stop. I can just turn whenever. So I go, no, no, there's 3 seconds. So then, we're both arguing with each other, and this guy starts following me, right? And he's now driving side by side from me. So I go, all right, let's see where this guy take us. At this point, we slow down to probably 5 kilometers an hour, and there's lines of cars behind us, right? This guy pulls down his window. I pull down my window, expecting a conflict. So the guy goes, I'm really sorry. I had a knee injury and I had a surgery, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm sorry. Fuck you. I want to be sorry. Like, I no longer want your acceptance. I want you to accept me. Okay? This is how pity I am. I no longer care that you are sorry and you have a great point of view about your driving. I care about me being sorry and you feeling good about yourself. Like, it was so ridiculous. And we just kept driving and just talking to each other. While meanwhile, everybody else behind us thought we were like arguing.
Oh,
It was quite funny.
that's funny.
Yeah. So I like what you're trying to tell us here.
Yeah.
Tell your audience. Yeah. John, I have a meeting very shortly in 10 minutes. Well, it's in 5 minutes, but I can definitely stay another 10 minutes if you like, or we can come back later on today and talk about this more in detail.
Well, whatever you want to do. I'll tell you what this is.
Okay.
This is what's it called? Purgatory.
Okay.
So this Buddha here, right? Every person who, if you do not, when you die and you do not want to go and try and get judged, you just sit in purgatory. And it's like a lottery system. So this big Buddha here, people pray to, and they sit there in silence for eternity. What's going on here? So what happens is the flower in his head, he pulls out of his forehead,
Mm-hmm.
and then the flower used to be one of the people. It's like a seed. So he takes someone from the crowd, he puts it into his forehead, and then it germinates, and then it grows into a flower. This is the same flower that's on my second book, I Don't Believe You.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I forget the name of it. But it grows, and then it's like a lottery system where you can grow into this flower, and then what happens is he picks the petals. I believe you. I don't believe you. I believe you. I don't believe you. And the belief is that, do you believe in God? I believe you. I don't believe you. Right? And if you believe in God, you go to heaven. If you don't believe in God, you go to hell. So it's kind of like a lottery system in that sense. Trying to take what. So
is it 50-50, or is it still depending on your internal feeling?
I don't know. I don't know. It's one of these things where I had these thoughts where it's like I had this part of the mythology. Let me just get it down on paper, and then I'll figure it out after the fact.
So you are accepting other religions other than Christianity, I guess, into this discussion.
Well, I'm not. It's not religion. I'm not like. I'm not thinking about religion. Right? I'm trying to think about
spirituality.
Well, I guess if there's going to be religion, I guess I don't know if what I'm doing is my own religion. It's just my way of explaining everything. So I'm not really looking at it. If you're a Muslim or Christian, Jew, it's not thinking about it that way. I'm just trying to think about it. What's actually occurring, right? So I figured, okay, this is my idea. This is what I feel actually. So.
And that's what we're doing, right? I feel like the more we poke holes in something, the more concrete it becomes, right? The more exploring, with the more ideas we're exploring. Do you want to read this?
I don't know if you have time because there's this and there's this. So if you want, you can come back.
Okay.
I'll just splice them together.
Sure. Okay, we'll come back to this. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Because usually you have like an hour, right, for your conversations. I feel like we're past hour.
Which it's an hour and 4 minutes.
Yeah. And that is okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't I come back? Because I have a meeting right now. Why don't I come back in maybe like 2 hours? Is that cool? Wait. No. In an hour. Is that okay?
Yeah, just try and see if maybe it'll work out.
Yeah, let's do 2 o'clock, okay?
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, we're recording.
All right, so let's continue. False prophets enlighten through awareness to explain away doubt in ourselves with unique mythology. The more unlikely they are to be being a messiah, the more keen doubters are to accept their wisdom. Why? Diversity fractures unity to suit minorities. Why? By embracing what makes us different, it encourages division. Uniqueness unites so long as it preaches honesty, not love. Love alone is not moral. Why? False prophets hinge their livelihood on approval of hypocrites. Sardonic poets unites hypocrites through severe honesty. Honesty creates a common ground that upsets everyone, unifying through hatred. Hatred of the truth, because it reminds us we are gonna die. Sardonic poets love to upset thin-skinned victims. Why? To unify the nation by accepting their uniqueness is not special. Unify, not diversify. We can all be special because that implies we're all unique, which equals division from those who are not special. Whereas unity in that who is not special, who decides that? The market. Interesting. And who is the market?
Well, the market is where you buy and sell. Anything you buy and sell from.
Mm-hmm. So basically, yeah, anything, the shoes that you wear, right?
Yeah.
The special editions that make you look special, right? Things like that. I get it. No, I think it's what you wrote here. It makes sense, right? It definitely makes, I do believe it as well, right? That nobody's different, yet nobody's the same, right? There's definitely similar attributes about us all, but there's definitely some differentials that make us unique, in one way or the next. But in grand scheme of things, we're just germs, living, breathing, and breeding, and that's it.
I think the only takeaway would be that the market decides who's special or not, and that's not necessarily how it should be. It's just how it is. If you want,
can you afford being special? Let's put it that way, right?
I mean, I would think most people would want to be.
Well, that's what I mean. Can you afford financially, right? That's what distinguishes you being different, special, right? It's the things that you can buy versus somebody who can't buy them.
Well, I think I'm supposed to point out. I meant to point out that through honesty, it is meant to shatter your perception of what you think makes you interesting, how you succeed in becoming interesting or unique. And I think in the pursuit of that, there's a deep sense of tribalism, because you're going to accept the people that accept you, and then for the people that don't, you're gonna want to avoid them at all costs. So that's where I talk about the how it encourages division. I'm just trying to point out what I see, and that because I've tried playing this game. That's my only card to play, is to be interesting, right? And the market's going to decide if that's true or not, because I could be the most interesting person on the planet, but if no one knows about me, no one wants to buy my shit, it's the market that decides, right? And unfortunately, you see how the market chooses with all the stupid shit out there. It's like, is that something?
All you need is that 1%, at least 1%, right? Population. Get them on board, and that's it. The rest will spread.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, I can't think of anything else to say about this paragraph.
Makes sense.
Okay, let's.
Okay. I'm here to tell you that awareness is an industry that monetizes what the market deems valuable to determine if your efforts deserve rewarding. Unlike nature, it's a contact that is guilty of rewarding unnecessary feats. It's a contract that is guilty of rewarding unnecessary feats. Society thrives on rewarding unnecessary feats. Why? Destruction from death. There's only destruction. That's why I said destruction from death.
I thought you said destruction.
No, destruction. There's only so much land to form and oceans to fish. You live in your lives distracted by fears, fed with paper that cannot nourish, clothe, or shelter. Uniqueness is a necessary feat, but diversity fractures unity. To suit minorities, we must not resent God's conquest. That's what Satan wants. However, how we achieve that is unnecessary. Why? Hinge your approval of God on God. It doesn't cost you anything. The market doesn't decide. God decides your value. Your doubt is quantified by your confidence in the market's effectiveness to distract you from death. That way, when you think of death, you are certain what awaits you. If you hinge your approval on doubt, the market decides how your legacy will live, if you're worth anything through merchandise. Your soul returns to hell, where you wait your turn to be reinserted into simulation. You're signed up for this asshole. God had nothing to do with it. Makes sense. Hell is above and below. Yeah, this makes sense, right? I get that the market decides whether you're valuable to society or not. That is definitely true, right? Um, but I feel like you also have to decide whether your skill is going to be valuable to the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are people going to be interested in what you have to say? Are you going to be, is what you're saying applicable to these followers, right? Um, it's interesting.
It's so this right here,
Hmm.
unlike nature, it's a contract that is guilty of rewarding unnecessary feats. Society thrives on rewarding us unnecessary feats. So this is why you see so many fucking idiots, losers, talentless hacks, because they only serve as a distraction from death. That's what they bring to the market. So everything they do is no practical application outside of distracting those they serve their attention. And when you have the market who sees the potential of distracting people from death, what happens is people live their lives distracted, not thinking about the deeper questions of life. Where they,
I don't even think they only distract them from death, dude. I think it's distracting them from living as well, right? You see all these people who only care about one thing, being on their phones and buying merchandise, right? And being current with the market, right? So I wouldn't say they're even living their lives. They're just part of it, but they're not living it.
yeah, it's I mean, it's. I think ultimately, it's everything. It's a derivative of death, where that everything leads to it. It's all finite, but no one goes so far as to think that deeply because they're too interested in either being distracted or complaining that they're not being distracted enough. Where it's never. It never becomes part of the conversation, and the market keeps it that way because when people start thinking too deeply, they become de-invested from that concept and they unplug from that what's it called, that servitude, and it's like that's where I find myself. I'm not all the things I used to be in the video games, like big time, used to be in the video games, used to be in the sports. So now I can't. I'd rather be bored than watch or play that crap. Like I just can't, because I just feel like it's just a distraction from the inevitable, and I figure I better use this time wisely to think about stuff that I think if people took the time to read, it might interest them to learn more. You know, that's my point of view on this. In terms of the hell above and below, I just want to help people understand that there's no physical place. It's not below our feet. You know, it's hell's in the head. So it's really like, and you can agree with me on this, right? That battle's in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say a hell is above and below, it's in your skull, above and below. That's why I say that.
Of course, yeah.
So
it's within you.
It's within you. So I would like people to come away from reading this and with the understanding that, okay, I really own this trauma. I own this battle. I own this journey. You know, it's not. I have the best insight into my own self, right? people can get me further along than I am now, but really, if you really wanted to invest the time, you know yourself better than anyone else, if you wanted to. So,
Right.
I'll show you. I'll show you since you're on here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
This is a concept that I came up with to help people through conquering their trauma. You know, whether that's mental illness, addiction, sexual abuse, whatever trauma that has occurred. I have a method in place that can help people remove it entirely, or at least have the tools to know how to deal with it.
Right.
For instance, so this here, this divide is called the sunken dread. Sunken dread is, if you ever felt where, like, for me, when I felt it, is when I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die right now. Like the sunken, it wasn't like, oh, like a hypothetical. It said, no, I'm gonna die right now. And then just imagine you're the sunken dread that occurs. So this is the line between common ground and hell.
Mm-hmm.
These little squiggly lines represent the spikes of trauma. So there's trauma here, here, and here. So what happens is it's almost like roots, think of like a weed in the soil. So the roots grow, and what you have to do is you have to dig deeper than the root and yank it out. Because if you grab it here, you pull, it'll snap, and then this will keep growing. This will keep growing, and you have to dig deeper and dig it out. So that's the idea here. With this, I call it, this is the point of no return. It's called the deviant gene. This is where there's a point, where the conscious and the subconscious, where the subconscious delivers to you without your consent the most deviant thought you are capable of thinking. And it's something that creates horrendous shame and trauma just because that came from your own brain. And there's no one you can share that with. So you will never be relieved from it. So everyone's got their own. I mean, it's a personal thing. If someone asked me, I would tell them. But for here, it's just the market. This is the deviant gene. It's the thing. Once you accept that part of you, you are then free to overcome your trauma. Because that's as deep as you'll go, that bit. For me, however, because I'm a sardonic poet, I went further. Okay? And you notice my books are stacked?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I look deeper and deeper and deeper. And notice that this book here is not published because, one, my publisher refused to publish it.
Yes.
Because of the content. And two, because I got a visit from the police.
Yeah.
I told you about that.
Yeah.
This is why it's so important to understand that thoughts are not illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Remember we talked about in the simulation of progress that the people who believe in doubt, says that thoughts are illegal. People that are on the progress side, thoughts are not illegal. So that's the side I'm on when it comes to removing trauma. You can't be ashamed of thoughts you can't control. You cannot, because it just this is going to get deeper and deeper, and then before you know it, you're never going to get rid of it. So you have to live with it and deal with it for the rest of your life. Me, I went into hell and dug that fucking root out of my head with this book. With this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get to publish it, but it goes to show that there are people in places. There's people as authority figures that, one, don't understand what they've been, how to address this type of thought process. Two, they're not allowed to, or they're afraid to. You know, it's like anything else, right? You don't want to. Cops don't want to lose their job to anyone other than like a computer programmer. So I've laid it out where it's like, look, it's you really if this evil is a part of you, you have to accept it completely, because if you don't, that gives your evil leverage to birth insecurity, and through there will be able to control you consciously, or you may do things that get you arrested, get you in trouble, get you fired, get you dumped. That's why it's important that you just can't, for people who are listening, I go to these depths in the hope that you don't have to. Maybe all you have to do is read my literature, and then it'll make sense for you. Because I'm not telling you the whole truth here. I'm just telling you what I think will be, one, I can remember and explain, and two, for you to just say, whatever you think you've done, I've gone deeper. Mm-hmm. And I've conquered.
It's like learn from your other people's mistakes, right? Don't learn from your own.
And it's just don't think that you can't share because of what you think it might guilt you or shame you. I'm not interested in doing that.
A lot of times we tend to only share our successes, right? That's what social media for me is such a poisonous tool, right? It only presents one side of a story. It doesn't present the struggles people have, right?
Yeah.
Or what kind of barriers they went through to get to that point. All they show is the bright, shiny things that somebody wants or has, right? And the fact that you're showcasing your issues, right? And the way you dealt with those issues, that's very iconic, and I feel like that's very heroic as well, right? I feel like you're gonna inspire people in the future, and I feel like you're gonna guide them to deal with their traumas better, right? And I feel like it makes sense.
Well, thanks for that. That's the plan, anyways.
John, I'm sorry, I gotta run. I apologize. But let's connect soon. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's cool. I think we covered everything, so that's
awesome. Cool. I'm glad you. I had a great conversation with you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really like this topic, and I hope you keep writing.
I will.
Awesome.
Okay, man. Thanks again, Alex, for coming on the podcast, and hope for all you that are listening out there that you enjoyed the podcast, and stay tuned. There's more to come. Okay? Bye for now.
Cheers, guys.